Remember that some things are nouns and some things are verbs. They're doers. So let's talk for a second about the nouns. The whole point of code is to make things easier for you. Why write numbers from 1 to 1,000,000 if a computer can do it without even blinking? You don't believe me? Well, let's write some code that will print the numbers from 1 to 100. You won't understand all of this code, but you will understand some of it already. So you can do this in the command line if you want. We'll just clear out what we currently have. So we're going to write for A in 1 to 100, and that's 3 dots. We're going to say print A. And when you hit enter, when you run that command from the command line, you can see what happens. It actually wrote the numbers from 1 to 100 very fast. You couldn't have written that faster. Your first time saving program. I promise you will understand that code very soon, but just know that it says for, let's look at the code, for every number from 1 to 100, print the current number. So let's go back to the playground. You can feel free to stay in the command line or in SwiftStub. Both are great options. Now, what if you were writing a program that started combining strings and you wanted to output the final string after combining them? Now we could write it like this. We could say print hi plus there plus Jack. Now that works, but it could be even better. What if we could break that up into multiple lines and store the string in a little container, and that container got added to as we progressed? So enter variables. Think of a variable as a little box. Each little box can only hold one thing. Some boxes you can put stuff in and replace it with other stuff. Other boxes, once you put stuff in it, it can never be changed. It's like a piggy bank, it's like a vault, except it's for one coin only. Now, this little box can take any type of object. Once you put that object in there, you can't replace it with a completely different type of object. Say you put a red card in a box. You could now take that red card out and put in a green card or a blue card. And then you could take that green card out and you could put in a yellow card. But what you can't do, without getting too advanced, is take the red card out and then put in something completely different like a bag of chips or a bagel. You can't just mix and match things like that. Once you make it a box for cards, it becomes a card box, only for cards. So how do you create a box in the first place? Well, let's stop calling it a box and start calling it a variable. You need 2 things to create a variable. You need the keyword var, and you need to name your variable so that you can grab it later. It's like labeling a cup at a party so that you know which one is yours. So let's make a box for strings since we're really good at making strings. We can say var s is equal to hi there. The equals sign is really important here. What this whole line says is, let's make a variable, that's the var part, let's name it s, that's the s part, and let's assign it to a string, hi there. The equals is the part that assigns. The equals puts the string into the box. Var s is only creating the box and naming it. Each part of this code is super duper important to understand. So here's an interesting question. Can you make a box and not put something into it? The answer is yes, but it's not for right now. The reason is because boxes that don't initially have any value or are completely empty to start with have to be marked as completely empty. This box doesn't have something in it now, but it will. That's what you have to say to Swift. Just for your own understanding, here's how the code would look. You would say var s2, since we already have an s, and you can say that it's a string, and you put a question mark next to it. Swift doesn't complain there, so if you were to write s2, it would complain because by default, that variable contains a value. You promised Swift that you would fill it with a value, but you didn't. If you wanted to just put something in there and leave it empty, you could fill it with an empty quote. That isn't the same as creating a completely empty string, but it is an empty string. Now that you have a box with a string in it, you can use it everywhere. So let's print it. We can say print s. And now look what you got back. That's because you have a variable with data in it. And for all your intents and purposes, that S contains a string. It contains hi there. Now you can think of it this way, but in reality it's not completely true. I'm only telling you this because you want to learn Swift the real way that it works. The real way that it works is that the box does not contain a string. What does the box really contain then? Inside that box is a reference to your string. It's like you found a library card inside of the box. And inside that box, there's a library card with details. If you are too young to remember library cards, then you can think of it like this. Inside of that box is a map with directions to where the card is in its location. But for simplicity's sake, you can just think of it as a box that contains a string.